You saw that big dip, not quite a 10% pullback, but almost there, and
Right.
then recovering almost right away to end the year. So it does kind of feel like a Christmas gift for investors on what's going to be a really quiet week of investing. Or we know there's not going to be a lot of trading happening during the week of Christmas. So do you think that this kind of rally in pretty much widespread in tech is going to continue well into finish out the year?
I do. And, typically, historically, I should say, a Santa Claus rally doesn't start until Friday because it's going to start that on Friday and then those following 3 days next week heading into the new year. Um, I believe you're going to see strength here. And the reason why is because two reasons. Number one is there's a lot of passive money that is coming in from investors who they're not necessarily interested in picking individual stocks. They're just people who contribute regularly to their 401ks and other things on a regular schedule. And that money is going into the market, and that money is going into the technology sector because that's where the funds are. And so they're going into the Mag 7, they're going into all those companies. That's one reason why I believe you're going to see the tech sector taking off. The other is that you've had some institutional investors that have to kind of make their numbers here in the last week of the year. So I think they're going to be plowing into the winners. It's going to be sort of that idea of chasing your leaders heading into the end of the year. That's why I think we're primed for a rally. And I think you're going to see it. It may not be quite as strong until you get to the day after Christmas, but I would think that on the 26th and then certainly the first part of next week, that's, I think, when you're going to start seeing a stronger rally.
All right, well, let's dive into some of the names our viewers want
Yeah.
to hear about. Somebody just commented that quantum was wild today, so we'll get to those stocks in a minute.
Okay.
But first, let's talk about eHealth. Little John, so glad to have you here. Little John had a really good one, and that is talking about ASTS. That stock has had quite a run, not just today.
It
It
certainly has.
started doing well, I think, late last week, too.
Yeah, the stock's up 29% in the last week, and it's up 13.5% today. So the news there is that they're going to be launching. What is it? They're launching their blue. What
Yeah,
I just
Bluebird
got to make sure.
6.
Bluebird
Bluebird
6. Thank
6.
you. I had to make sure I got the name right. Yeah, they're going to be announcing launching the Bluebird 6. I think that's happening sometime this week, if maybe even tomorrow. And so investors have been excited about that. They've been rallying the stock heading into it. This has been a strong performer. I think, this has been a strong performer all year. I mean, the stock's up 277% this year.
Right.
And, news like this just sets it up to continue to move higher. It's the right stock in the right sector. This is just very bullish for investors heading into 2026.
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting name. I love talking about this one because I love the concept, but I think viewers were
Yeah.
definitely questioning the stock just a little while ago. We've been talking about it for quite some time on this show.
Yeah.
It's a name that's come up several times over the whole last year. But you can see this dip back here. We
Sure.
know all of tech dipped, but it dipped quite a bit, all the way down to
Yeah.
$50, and now we're up at 85 in just a really short span.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. When you have a
Sure.
concept that we like, when we know that there's some new product launches coming down the road, is this dip right here a time to be thinking about getting in, or is that kind of a risk? I think for investors, especially an up and coming pre-revenue company like this, it can be hard to think about buying
Sure.
when it's on such a big drop off.
Well, the stock fell, and the reason why the stock fell was, I think, largely because there was concern about insider selling. But I'm always cautious about that. I'd have to dive in to see specifically why some of the insiders were selling. A lot of times, that selling is part of a pre-announced distribution plan. Investors have to realize that for many of these companies, stock compensation is a key part of executives' compensation, and so they choose different times during the year to sell some of their stock because, again, that's part of their compensation. So I don't know if that was the case here, and I don't want to say it was, but I suspect it was. And right now the stock has shot up higher. It's well above the analysts' trends.
Yeah, I'm
I
looking right
don't
now
really.
exactly at that, Chris. I'm on the
Yeah.
analyst forecast, and yeah, like you said,
Right.
consensus is down. This is interesting that just on December 15th, Weiss Ratings reiterated this as a sell. So that's kind of an interesting, really recent one. The other
Right.
ones are more so back in October and earlier. It's not a lot of recent price action from analysts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility here. I see short interest is let's see, where was short
It
interest
was
at?
14.
Short, yeah, short interest is at 14%. It's down a little bit, but it was really high at the end of October. Some of what you're seeing now may have just be the sort of the ending of a short squeeze where some of those short positions are unwinding. I would caution investors just be a little careful about chasing the stock when it's up as high as it's gone in the last week. But certainly, this is a stock that you're going to want to keep on your watch list if you're not in it. If you are in it, these are the times when you might want to think about taking some money off the table. I'm going to try to take a look at the chart here a little bit. It's trading well. It just, yeah, in the last few days, it popped above its 50-day moving average, so that's bullish. The MACD is starting to show signs of a potential bullish reversal. So, this is one of those that you kind of have to be careful about, but because it's made such a strong move higher, and anytime a stock makes kind of a parabolic move like that, you have to be concerned that there could be more downside risk. But again, and you look at the analyst target are for a price in the mid 40s. So again, I think it's one that you want to have on your watch list. Certainly, if it starts cracking a new 52-week high, that could be your signal to go ahead and buy. But I might wait now and see if it's going to pull back a little bit, especially after the new year.
Yeah, and to see what that product launch actually does for the
Right,
company,
right.
for the stock, it's interesting to see. Well,
Yeah.
we've spent some good time on that because it's seen such
Yeah, it
a
is.
big run up recently. We've got a few other names here that have had some good run ups recently, but we're going to move to eHelp's suggestion. He wants to hear about ServiceNow. This is stock ticker NOW, and this is
Right.
not an example of a run up. In fact, it's an example of a little bit of the opposite. This is down quite a bit, and it actually had a pretty big recent drop of about 3% in just the last month.
Yeah. So it's come back a little bit today, but it's down about 5% actually in the last month. And but it's been having actually a decent week. It's finishing up about 0.6%, but it's down. It's down from where it was just Wednesday of last week. It was up around $161 a share, and now it's down to 156. The news here is the company's trying to pivot into into a different area of the business, or
Oh, eHelp is saying this is interesting. eHelp is saying that
yeah.
was a 5-to-1 split for ServiceNow, that we saw a stock split with it.
Oh, okay. I was not aware of that.
Sorry, eHelp, we did not. We're not up on all of these. We're just taking them as they come. Let's take a look and see what some of the headlines say on this one recently.
Yeah. I was looking more at the company is pivoting into they're trying to build what they're calling a comprehensive control tower for AI. They're acquiring technologies that secure physical assets and enhance data governance. So I was looking more down that road. I seriously was not aware of the fact that they split. Let me see here.
Yeah, I'm also checking to see what the analysts have to say about this one right now too. Right now where it's at, it looks like there's quite a big upside. I'm curious what the split has to do, will impact that. We've got a brand new one that just came out today as a buy rating, the price target of 200, which would still be almost a 29% upside from where it is right now. So good to see that as a very recent analyst forecast. Some new coverage on this one today. We all know this is an important sector that's growing a lot too.
Okay, so it was a 5-for-1 stock split, and it happened on Thursday of last week. So okay, so yeah, the stock's trading now at its new split adjusted price, and it doesn't look like, it looks like the market's fairly favorable for it. It was down it was trending lower. It looks like it dipped immediately after this on the day of the split, but then it's gone up since then. So it seems like investors may be reacting favorably to it. Let me look at the analysts. Yeah, the analysts are saying 43% upside here. So
yeah, I think it's a good one to talk about. Again, thanks for bringing this one to our attention. It wasn't on our radar at all, so I'm glad that you got that up, and just let us know what's happening in that one. We'll keep following it. It's so recent after that split, so it'll be interesting to see where that one goes. As a business, before we move on, let's talk about what they do as a company and maybe future outlook for the new year. Do we see a lot of demand coming for ServiceNow in 2026?
Yeah, so they're a cloud computing company, and they do enterprise software. So they're the company that manages your digital workflows and automated the business processes. The company is expected to do well, right? Like I said, again, the analysts' forecasts are very bullish on the stock. Short interest is down significantly. So I like what I'm seeing here. I'm a little bit concerned about the price action this week. I'm just not necessarily sure why the stock is dropping so surely. I have to just confess, I'm not that up to date on the ins and outs of this particular stock. So
no worries at all. I keep going to the wrong camera. All right, let's move on to a couple others. We're going to do Adobe is an interesting one, so we're going to get to that soon. But we had somebody ask about some stocks we haven't talked about in a while. That's Palo Alto Networks, PANW, and then Boeing Aircraft. And both of these have charts kind of similar. Boeing is having a really good end to the year. So let's take a look at why that might be. Maybe we'll start with Boeing.
Sure.
I always wonder if with a company like this, if it has anything to do with year-end travel, but I think Boeing's a much more complicated story than just that.
Yeah, Boeing is a little bit more complicated than that. But I think one of the areas that is happening with Boeing is it seems to have, I guess you could say, the worst is behind it. The company is now generating positive free cash flow. So investors are starting to see a company that's financially healthy, whereas that wasn't necessarily the case earlier this year. It's starting to see higher commercial aircraft delivery rates. It's got regulatory approval to increase its production. So a lot of that bad news that was weighing on the stock is starting to go away. And that's giving the stock a chance to rise or fall on the company's own merits rather than on the headlines. Having said that, it's trading within about 7.5% of the consensus target because it has had a really nice run up. It's up about 20% in the last month, which is basically given it all of the gains it's had year to date. But that's really the situation that's forming with Boeing. Is it was so bad for so long, and the news on the company was so bad, and now a lot of those bad headlines are being replaced by positive headlines, and that's giving investors a chance to just look at the company with fresh eyes and say, okay, there are some things to like here. And again, I think you have to be careful when the stock's gone up this much this fast. Maybe there's going to be a little bit of a pullback. The company reports earnings end of next month, around January 27th. They're going to be one of the first companies to report. So again, maybe a time to buy. This was one I would say is maybe more of a watch list stock right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out I have the chart up to the 5-year history, and the volatility for this stock has been really quite wild. I'd love to hear from investors or people who are watching right now. Did you get burned by Boeing any time in these last 5 years? Because there's been just so much volatility with this stock specifically. So interesting story. I wonder how many people are still looking to get in on this stock simply because it's moved so much and really quite wildly over the last few years.
It's definitely been a stock that's probably been kinder to traders than long-term investors, because if traders were watching the technicals, they could probably try to be timing their ins and outs a little bit more. Definitely much more difficult to think of this stock in terms of a long-term hold. But that situation, again, may be changing if you start looking at how the company's going to perform. But it is still a very volatile stock, and I think I'd probably want to see a little bit more clarification before I jumped in.
All right, so Chris, you can look up Palo Alto Networks next.
Sure.
I do want to say we've got a few comments coming in. Again, because my mic wasn't working when we started, Thomas is out today. He's celebrating Christmas a little early already, so it's just me and Chris today. Moha, thank you for talking about my red shirt just in time for Christmas. Got some red colors to come on for the show, so we are excited to be a little bit festive on the show. Again, I love Christmas week. It's fun. It's very light in the market, though. Not a lot of trading happening this week, but still good to be prepared. And I still think we're going to see some moves this week for sure. Let's get into Palo Alto. This chart looks a little bit interesting too. Not a ton of movement recently. A little bit of that. Yeah, this is an interesting one.
You know, this chart reminds me a little bit about what you're seeing with a company like CrowdStrike right now. This is a sector where a lot of people believe these stocks should be higher than they are, and instead the stocks are falling when in some cases they should be rising. I don't think there's anything for investors to be concerned about here. I think this is just a case where some of these stocks are pretty richly valued right now. I know CrowdStrike is. Palo Alto has a PE of over 119, a forward PE of over 108. So these stocks are richly valued, and right now, I think there's just some pressure on these companies to say, are you going to be delivering the results you're going to be delivering? Analysts still like Palo Alto. It's the cream of the crop when it comes to a lot of the legacy cybersecurity companies. The demand in this sector is not going to go away. Again, I think this is one of those areas where this is a question of maybe not I think it's just where do you want to get in? I do see that the stock is, let me see here. Where is it in relation to the 50-day? Just crossed. So the stock's trading about 10% below its 50-day moving average. And I was just looking at CrowdStrike today, and I think I would probably have similar advice to investors on Palo Alto is you're going to want to look at that 50-day moving average. If the stock can make a convincing move above that moving average, which is around 202, I think that's your signal that you're going to want to get in. Otherwise, again, I think you're just going to have to kind of wait this out. Nothing wrong with cybersecurity stocks in the long term, but in the short term, there are a lot of them that are really overvalued from when you're looking strictly at the fundamentals, they're very overvalued.
Yeah, before we move on to the next one, I wanted to point out one of the things that stood out to me, it might be old news by now, but in Q2, they had 30 billion sold from the institutional ownership. Quite a bit sold last quarter. So that is interesting just to see. Yeah. It's leveling out now, but that really stood out as, who knows, maybe that led to some of the volatility in the chart recently.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's just the institutions were selling off on the valuation concerns. Yeah. But then you're also seeing this quarter they're starting to buy back in a little bit. So, again, the sector's fine. The demand for cybersecurity isn't going to go away. In fact, it's going to increase. But I think a lot of these companies have very rich valuations, and I think there's just some concern about that.
All right, let's move on to a couple other sectors. Somebody mentioned Merck. Joe, that's a really good one to talk about. We wanted to talk about that when we started because it's up so well today. So we'll get to Merck in a second. Let's get to Rigetti first. I thought that the quantum computing stocks are good to look at. So I'm just going to pull up the chart for Rigetti. This one looks like it's just up 18% in the last 5 days. So it's definitely getting a little bit of a rebound in there after a really hard few months here. We came down quite a bit from that 57 all the way down to 23 before we jumped up very recently for this one. I'm going to pull up a couple others too. D-Wave probably, just to see an IonQ, just to see what's happening with those.
Sure.
Do you know, did anything spark the turnaround for, I mean, maybe they're just following the tech rebound that we're seeing with AI stocks and a lot of those AI tech companies. Is that part of what could be going on with the quantum computing stocks?
I do. I don't think that you've been hearing anything that's specific that you're going to say, oh, this is why Rigetti's spiking, this is why Rigetti isn't. There is interest in this sector. Let's just say that there's interest in the quantum computing stocks. They're going to be some of the natural choices to for retail investors. They're going to be natural targets for retail investors to jump into, especially if we're talking about a year-end rally. They're going to be looking at these quantum stocks.
I've got them pulled up, Chris, really quick, because I think that we know that they all like to move together. And I started with Rigetti. That one, it was up 18% in 5 days. D-Wave is up 34% in 5 days. And IonQ is up 17% in 5 days. So it looks like D-Wave is the winner right now for this huge rebound happening just in the last few days for quantum computing stocks. We did just recently do a video with Jeffrey Johnson on some of the quantum computing stocks. And I think one point that he made, Chris, was that with quantum computing stocks, there's not necessarily market moves based on actual developments and what's happening with these companies. It's more so just market sentiment and when is there momentum for these companies and when is there not? Would you agree with that to some extent?
I would absolutely agree with that. And I think what you're seeing over the last few days, I think the quantum sector is something that investors are going to want to watch very carefully. And it's something that you may even find it worthwhile to invest in one or more of these stocks or in an ETF that carries these stocks. But you have to be careful right now because a lot of these stocks are trading on headlines, and headlines aren't the same thing as delivering actual products that are delivering actual revenue and going to be leading to actual profits. And I think that's the concern. I'm not banging on the sector and saying that there's no possibility here, but most of these companies have very little revenue. They're not profitable, and that's not going to change anytime in the near future. Doesn't mean it won't change at some point, but it's not there. For example, D-Wave's up largely because it announced that its Advantage 2 annealing system will be a centerpiece at a trade show in 2026. That's not the same as saying that there's companies that are going to be buying its product and it's going to be making revenue and profit. Rigetti's up because they've announced their 2026 roadmap promising higher qubit systems with significantly lower error rates. That's great, but that's a promise, and it's not a product that you can touch and see and feel and deliver revenue. So again, it sounds like I'm banging on the sector. I'm really not. I'm just saying investors need to be careful because these stocks can go up without very much reason, and they can go down just as quickly. They're in the hands of traders right now, and retail, and if you're an investor that's looking to invest in the sector for the long term, you need to understand that, and you need to understand why the stocks are moving. And if they're moving up or down on nothing that has to do with the fundamentals, then you just kind of have to stay the course, and you're just going to have to be patient.
Yeah. So much interesting names coming out here in the comments. I love to hear from everyone. Sure. Thanks for all of the stocks out there. I'm going to get to as many as we can. It's just the two of us today, so I'm trying to look some up as Chris is talking. Light has been mentioned a few different times, and it's similar enough to quantum computing stocks that I wanted to bring it up now. LITE, Lumentum, I believe is what it's called. I don't think we've seen this one before, but it's got a 21, almost 22% jump in the last 5 days. Got that chart pulled up. An incredible year, too, up 359% in 1 year, 365% year to date. So a huge run. Mm-hmm. And again, just in the last few days, the stock has been up a lot. I don't know, have you covered this one before, Chris?
I have not. I'm not sure if Thomas has, but it's not really quantum. It's more of a high speed communication play with data centers. It produces lasers and optical subsystems that are used in telecom and also again the data centers. And I think that's probably why the stock is up so much let's see. Yeah, the stock's up significantly this year. It's up over 365%. It's up over 52% in the last month. So this is soaring, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with data center demand. And the demand for this, again, it's the picks and shovel type of company. That said, it's up above the consensus target by about 43%.
Right.
So that's something that I think investors need to watch very carefully. From what I can see, it's right now trading. It's trading at 389. That's higher than the highest analyst estimate that I see on the board, which is from Rosenblatt at 380. So again, I think there's a measure of caution to be taken here. Maybe this could be a time. Short interest is 18%, and that's even with it being down 10%. It's up about 18%. So again, I think it's one of those things where investors may want to wait for a pullback here before they get involved. Because the stock is up again very, very sharply right now.
Yeah, this one is so interesting. Such huge moves on this one. I'm sure there's some traders definitely paying attention to this one.
Yep.
Let me know in the comments. Again, thanks for bringing this one up. If you've heard of or talked about this one before, I'm glad you brought it to our attention just because we've not talked about it on the show yet. We've got a couple people who want to hear about Rocket Lab, so we'll get that.
Yeah.
Data Vault is another one to talk about. I do have Merck pulled up though, so before we get to those other two, I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, trying to keep us in line here. But we did talk about Merck before we got started because it had a really good day, and this is such a big company. I think it's worth talking about. A lot of the health sector is doing really well right now. Intuitive Surgical is also up today. But what might be behind that jump that Merck saw today?
Yeah, there's actually been a series of headlines that are driving the stock price for Merck. So the company got an analyst upgrade, which is nice. But the analyst upgrade is coming because Merck was named along with one of 9 pharmaceutical companies that have agreed to lower their prices that certain federal government programs and patients pay for their drugs. The US FDA also granted Merck priority vouchers for its cholesterol pill and for a cancer therapy. So yeah, there's been a lot of positive news for Merck, which many people believe has been an undervalued stock for quite a while. The stock's only up 5% year to date, and that's after a 30% surge in the last 3 months. So the stock's knocking on the door of its 52-week high right now. This might be a really interesting time to get in on the stock. This is a stock that, in addition to being a very reliable company in the biopharma sector, it also pays a really nice dividend with a 3.2% yield. Again, the dividends aren't the reason to buy the stock, but it certainly is a reason that you can be patient with one stock. And Merck's one of those names. Again, it's increased its dividend for 14 years, attractive 44% payout ratio, so the dividend's very safe. And right now, analysts are still saying there's about 5% upside on the stock.
Very good. Well, we've got a lot of different names, so I'm going to fly through them as much as we can. Data Vault, if Wish Thomas were here, this is the one that he brought out. It made one of his monthly stock picks that he was talking about. Again, it's a really tiny company, but it's had a really hard end of December. Pulling up this chart right now, down 32% just in the last 5 days, down 65% in the last month. Curious to see if there's anything behind that, if maybe investors just got too excited about it and it just got ahead of itself. Is there still a strong potential for this one in the future?
Well, Bridget, I think you're hitting on the key word there, and it's potential. And I think this is one of those stocks that falls in the same area that we were just talking about with quantum computing. I don't think there's anything to necessarily dislike about the company's business model, but it's a company that's generating precious little revenue right now. It's not profitable, and right now, that's a risk. Now, traders have been in on the stock. They're going to stay in on the stock. I imagine that you're going to see a lot of price movement on it, but again, I think if you're looking to invest in the stock, you just have to be aware of the fact that there's going to be volatility here. This is one of those stocks I would say it has a lot of potential, but it's trading under $1 for a reason. And the analysts are saying the price could go as high as $3, which would be a significant increase. But the company's got to show you something to earn that privilege. If you believe in the stock and you believe in what the company can do, certainly pullbacks like this are a time where you add to your position. But again, you're just going to have to be careful, because until the stock can show that it's got a path to profitability and then can deliver on that path and become profitable, all of these stocks are speculative. And you just have to understand that speculative stocks carry a little bit more risk.
I do think it's important to point out too, whenever we talk about what analysts have to say on a company this small,
right?
There's only a couple of analysts actually even looking at it, so it's even hard to put weight into what, because it's such a small pool of what people say, and their opinions vary so much. It looks like back in December of last year, we had one analyst who was giving it a price target of $14 at one point, or $11. So clearly there's some different opinions on where the future of this company could be. And I love, Mohawk just said, penny stocks are just a gamble in general. I think that's a really good point. Anytime we're talking about these, just keep that in mind, that these are speculative stocks, and make sure you're not putting in more than you are willing to lose if necessary. All right, I'm going to go to Rocket Lab next, because that's the one I remembered, and I know there's a lot of other names to talk about too, guys, so I'm getting to them as quickly as I can here. I am going to pull up the chart right away. It looks like, wow, it looks like it's having a really good 5 days. What a good run up for so many of these names we talk about here. Up 43% in 5 days.
Right.
Do you know what's behind that, Chris?
I can. Now see here, I'm going to say, so now the traders that are on this call, they can sit there and say, okay, I'm not going to be Scrooge for this entire video. Here's one where Rocket Lab's not yet profitable, but this has been a speculative stock that has really proven something to investors. And right now the stock is moving strongly higher. It had great news today. So what they've announced is that they were 21 for 21 on all their launches this year. It was a record year of launches for the company, and they were successful in all 21 of them. That's great news. They were approved for more launches for next year, for 2026. So that means more revenue for the company that they probably haven't forecasted yet, which is another reason the stock's going up. They also got an analyst upgrade, probably due to a lot of that news. So again, this is a company that still, it's not profitable yet, but you are seeing strong earnings growth. That and what I just said was, again, they've got unrealized revenue now that will probably start showing up in their earnings reports going forward. That's going to excite investors. Now you can start seeing a path to profitability here. The company right now is primarily known for their launches, but it's involved in much more than just launches. It's a space services company, and it's going to have a tailwind with it, because if SpaceX follows through and has its IPO next year, as some people think it might, 2026 could be a enormous year for the space sector in general, and Rocket Lab's just one of the strong plays in the sector.
That's a great point about this one. There's a lot of potential for this. Looking at the consensus price target, we are it is trading well above its consensus price target. But looking at some of the recent ones, recent price targets of 63 and 60 and 67. So that's not out of the realm of where it is right now, but it's still less than where it's trading today. So
I would agree, and I think, but this is one of those times where I would tell investors, this news that we're getting today and in the last couple of days is still relatively fresh, and we haven't seen analysts weigh in on it. So what I would be looking for as an investor is, I want to see, it's already covered by about 15 analysts, which is pretty strong for a company of this size. Now let's see what happens when the analysts digest this news. I'm going to guess that price target's going to be going up higher. And as we've talked about before, Bridget, that's sort of where you want to look, because it's not necessarily what the analysts say, but it's what the analysts do with their price targets. It's already received one bullish price increase today. I would suspect you're going to see more. And so when you start seeing the floor get raised, I think that's going to be the room that the stock needs to move higher.
All right, very good. Well, we've got a super chat coming in. Love to see these sometimes. Mary, thank you for that. AMPX is next. Mary wants to know what's going on with this one. Is there consolidation happening? I know AMPX has been struggling as of recently. I haven't looked at it yet today, though, to see what's happening, if it's rebounding with tech at all. I know this is one that Thomas has been bullish on for quite a while.
Yeah, he is.
We also talked to him recently in person. If you haven't caught some of our editions, Chris and I's video just came out. We got to see each other in person and had a fresh video in person for the week of Christmas. So you're going to hear about AMPX from Thomas and what he thinks the stock will do in 2026. So make sure to stick to our channel during this holiday week. We've got some fresh videos for all of you then to watch too. But Chris, let's look at this chart.
Sure.
It is still falling, a slight rebound, but down almost 25% in 3 months. What could be happening here?
Oh, I think this is a garden variety pullback. I think that investors, again, this stock got up. It's up 223% for the year. That's quite a run up. It's natural heading into the last 3 months of the year, the last month of the year, that there might be some profit taking with it. The MACD showed tremendous bearish momentum over the last, in the last month. That's slowing down though. So if you start seeing that MACD start reversing, that could be a signal that the worst is over for the stock. Let me see here. Yeah, it's not in oversold territory yet as far as the RSI is concerned, but it's trending in that direction. So the way when I'm looking at the stock right now, it's around $7 and around $8, $7.90. That would be a pretty firm level of support from where the stock is right now, and it's only about $1 away from that right now, which sounds like a lot, but with stocks like this, it can move pretty fast. On the other hand, it does look like it's trying to form a bottom right now. It's a little too early to tell if that's going to happen, but if it does, certainly there's room for this stock to move higher.
Yeah, I'm looking at this now too. This is a name we've talked about so many times in the channel. Thomas has talked about really believing that there's a big market for this in the future and could change the battery industry. But it doesn't look like there's a lot of institutional ownership. Only 5% of this company is in institutional ownership, and that does make sense for how small the stock is. But do you think we could see that help turn things around if we get some institutional interest in this one?
So yeah, that's going to be a chicken and egg story, Bridget.
Right.
The institutions aren't going to come into the stock until the stock is profitable, until it starts showing things. Look at an example like, and again, I'm not comparing the two companies, please don't think that, but look at an example like Palantir. Palantir was ignored a lot by the institutions until it became profitable, and then a lot of institutions couldn't ignore the stock anymore. Then it got included in the S&P and it couldn't be ignored anymore. It got it put in the NASDAQ and it couldn't be ignored anymore. So it's kind of a chicken egg story here. It's got to hit some targets first before the institutions are going to pay attention to it. Having said that, this is a time when retail investors can really get their position set before that big money moves in. Of course, you have to be right and you have to make sure that the stock's going to be a winner. I know Thomas certainly believes in this stock. He's closer to it than I am, but I've heard his arguments for it, and I can't say that I disagree with them. So if you like this stock, this is a stock that you want to buy on any weakness so that when the stock does pay off, you've already got your position set. And then if the stock runs up by a large amount, you can sell off your initial investment, and then you're just riding on profit the rest of the time.
Yes, very, very true. I know Mohawk had a question earlier asking about whether now is a time to get out of small caps. And interesting timing, because Chris and I just had a video come out yesterday talking about 5 small caps to watch for 2026. And also the Russell 2000 had a really great day today. I mean, one of the strongest indexes out there. So if you are looking for more of those small cap names, I do have a quick article online. If you've got a second to scan the QR code or click the link, you can go to that article on MarketBeat. It's a list of 5 really strong performing small caps. A lot of the names we talked about here could fit the bill, but aren't quite in this list. So some different names to look at. If you want to take a look at our website, that's a lot of what we do here is showing you data from our website. This is some more data for you to look at if you want. Let's get into, just because you mentioned it and somebody asked about it in the comments too, Palantir, just looking at the chart,
Sure.
it looks like they're doing really well. They're up almost 10% in 5 days,
Yeah.
which is a big run for a company like Palantir that has, so big where it is now. Do you know what could be behind that, or is it just general sentiment?
I think it's just general sentiment. I think this goes back to where I started when we were talking, Bridget. This is a case of institutional investors are trying to make their books for the rest of the year. They're chasing the stocks that are the best performing ones, and they're putting money in it. And I think that's why Palantir is going up. It hasn't really had any news in the last week or so that would be prompting such a move. But I think that's really what's happening is institutional investors are chasing performance right now to close out the year, and Palantir is going to get some of that money for sure.
Cool. We've got a couple of other really interesting names that have come in. The first one is not as interesting, but it's not one we've talked about in a while, but somebody have asked a few times, so I want to get it out here. This one is Devon Energy, DVN. It just looks like an independent oil and gas exploration company. It fits well with another question we had about where do you think that oil is going to go in 2026. So good questions. Here is a look at the chart for Devon Energy. Again, I don't think I've ever heard this one before. I don't think it's come across the radar. And I looked at the chart earlier. It's not doing much. It's not doing too much. I think it's up 18% for the year, which is, a strong and steady performance for sure. Not quite the volatility that some of the other stocks we've talked about have had this year either.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any specific news for Devon Energy. So when you start looking at Devon, they're an upstream company. So this is a company they're involved in the drilling side of the equation. They're not an integrated company like a Chevron or an Exxon. They're not a pipeline company. So this is a company that's really focused on the drilling part of it. And I suspect that's why the stock hasn't been doing that much, because a lot of what's going to happen with the stock is going to depend on what's going to happen with the price of oil. The price of oil has been fluctuating. However, I think you're starting to see Devon tick up a little bit here in the last few days, and I think again that's trading in sympathy with the price of crude. There are some people that believe, regardless of what's happening with the U.S. and Venezuela, that 2026 could be a bullish year for oil stocks in general, because at some point you're going to start seeing you're going to start seeing that supply demand dynamic change a little bit, and that's what would drive a spike in Devon and other companies.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm going to have you look up the next one, which is a really interesting chart. This is called Planet Labs. PL is the stock ticker, and they have had a 25% gain in just 5 days. So look into that company a minute. I've got other comments I wanted to address. We're running out of time. We normally wrap up at about 3:50, just before 4, or just before the hour. So sorry, we're going to wrap up here soon. But I see several people asking. Charmin, thanks for being here, asking about Archer. A couple other people asking about the eVTOL race. I'm going to skip that one for now because I know I have a video coming out on Christmas Day that's going to talk about it. So make sure to watch, again, the videos we have coming out on the channel the rest of this week, because we're going to hit some of these companies that you're talking about. So there's a new name in eVTOL that you maybe haven't heard of yet that we're going to talk about on this episode that comes out Christmas Day. So make sure to watch that one. I'm going to pop this up really quick. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, oh, wrong button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure that you do. You'll get a notification right when that new video comes out. And we're going to be posting all throughout the holiday break here. So even though if you've got a little bit more time, you're just at home, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can know when our latest video drops. And again, for those who want to hear about what's happening in the eVTOL race, we have a video coming out that will address that a little bit on Christmas Day. Another one question was about Oklo. Another video coming out, that Christmas Day video will also address that one and some other names that are in this list. So check if you're interested in what's happening with those small nuclear reactors. We cover that. We cover the eVTOL sector as well. So watch us the rest of this week. Chris, let's get into this last chart because I think it's really interesting. Did you have time to take a look at it?
Yeah, I did. And so Planet Labs, stock is up. And the reason why is because they had a really good earnings report on December 10th. The company, they beat on revenue. Now their earnings, they're not a profitable company yet, and they missed on earnings quite significantly. but they more than made up for that with the revenue that they earned. They grew their revenue 33% year over year. They announced that they've tripled their backlog, which suggests that there's going to be even stronger revenue growth ahead. So once again, I think it's great that we're kind of ending here, because we kind of got midway through this broadcast. We were kind of talking about the negative side of speculative stocks. I think Planet Labs is showing the positive side, just like Rocket Labs does. Here's a company that's delivering strong revenue. They're proving their business model is working. That should give some investors confidence that profitability will come. It's not there yet, but it's going to come along. And I think, and certainly that's why you're seeing the spike in the stock today.
Yeah, I'm really glad that whoever commented
sector.
this. Yeah, I'm glad that whoever commented this one brought it up, because I don't think this one has come across the MarketBeat Monday either. I think it's hard to see it as an investor, to see such a big spike. Maybe not the best time to get in when you're seeing such a huge growth. I mean, this company's up 400% in the last year. I think that's the strongest performance I've seen yet on a stock that we've talked about today. And I also, looking at the analyst, again, not a lot of analyst coverage, but we're trading well above that analyst coverage, those analyst projections for the stock. So it seems maybe a little too hot to get into right now.
It might be. Yeah. I mean, certainly it's when it shoots up this high, this fast, you can almost count on the fact that it's going to pull back a little bit. But again, this is where investors want to, if you're not in the stock yet, use that pullback as an opportunity to get in at a better price. And certainly, I think for some investors, if you're in on the stock, depending on where you're, depending on what your average cost is in, certainly, this is a time to think about taking profits.
All right, a last stock, it's a good one to end on today, and that's Nvidia. We were hoping to talk about it earlier, and we had the microphone issues, but Charmin wants to hear about it. And I know that there was some news to talk about with Nvidia today. So let's talk about what's behind this 7% jump for Nvidia in the last 5 days.
Sure, I'll just reiterate what we said at the top. So Nvidia announced today that they're going to be selling their H200 chips into China. That's going to start happening sometime in mid-February. The company's projecting that they're going to be selling anywhere from 40,000 to 80,000 chips. This is revenue that has not been forecast by Nvidia yet. Currently, as far as the H200 chips were concerned, revenue for next year was zero. Now it's certainly not zero, and that was not in their last earnings report. So investors are they're bidding up the stock because they are estimating that in the future, you're going to start seeing you're going to start seeing better revenue numbers from Nvidia, which again, this starts to defeat a little bit of the AI bubble story. It starts deflating that story a little bit, because again, chip demand is going to be strong, not only here in the US, but also now in China.
Really good info, Chris. Thank you so much for going through all of this solo today. It's a lot to do all by yourself. So we missed Thomas today, but Chris, you did an awesome job getting through all of this. Thank you all for joining us today in the week of Christmas. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season ahead. Just so you know, just a heads up about content that's coming out this week. We'll have another fresh video tomorrow. A really, really good one on Christmas Day that I'd love to have you guys watch when you have some time. And then we'll also have one on Friday night and then Sunday as well this week. So a lot of new content, even though we might be at home enjoying some Christmas gifts and things like that, still have some content for you to look at and prepare for your investing and to end out the year of 2025. Thanks for watching, everyone. As always, happy investing.